Officially, it is Sam Leavitt that is taking on the big pressure in Baton Rouge.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you all so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, the number one sports podcast network out there. Can Deuce Knight get Ole Miss right back into the playoff and the quarterback moves you probably missed, but I'm going to tell you about on today's show, which is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Matt Moscona of Locked On LSU, best in the business, here to discuss what I mentioned on my Monday show, Matt, that Sam Leavitt was likely the top option for LSU because, well, there was no one else really left after Damon Williams decided, I'm doing the George Costanza right back to Washington and pretending that none of that happened. So what was your initial reaction? I'm glad you got that reference. I thought you might. What was your initial reaction to Sam Leavitt going to LSU and having, I think, a good amount of pressure being put on his shoulders, because there's pressure on that program and on Lane Kiffin and now on Sam Leavitt to win immediately?
Well, if you told me Sam Leavitt and LSU reached a deal when he was here last Tuesday, that would not have been a surprise. That visit was going exceptionally well. LSU early in the visit was pushing for his commitment. Only when the Damon Williams story broke the way I've kind of described it, Spencer, is LSU was on a date and it was going exceptionally well, and a pretty girl walked in the restaurant and LSU got up from the table and went to go talk to the pretty girl that just walked in the restaurant. It's really hard to go back to your date at the table in that situation. But that's what LSU did. And Lane Kiffin flew up to Knoxville on Friday. I don't know if he begged, groveled, pleaded, whatever, but they got back in the mix. For Sam Leavitt, I do think lack of options was part of this. I mean, it was LSU, Miami, Tennessee, but obviously they're trying to bring Aguilar back for another season. It cost LSU a bit more, as I'm told. They did have to up their offer from what it would have been a week ago to get Sam Leavitt. But look, if he's healthy and he's the number one quarterback in the portal and he's a plug-and-play guy that has big-time experience, and expectations for LSU in 26 go up dramatically if Sam Leavitt's healthy. But that's the big if right now, Spencer.
What is the latest on the injury front? Yeah,
so that's, as I understand it, that was really what caused LSU to take its eye off the ball last week. For those that don't know, Leavitt had a Lisfranc injury this past year, cost him basically half a season at Arizona State. And he had surgery in November, and he is expected to miss spring. And I only think when he got here did the staff really get an understanding of just how severe that injury was for Leavitt. And there's a concern that maybe that injury could linger into the summer and closer to fall camp. And man, when you start talking about the money these quarterbacks are getting, that's a big investment for a guy with a foot injury that has maybe an uncertain health path. So the way that I understand how LSU structured this deal is Leavitt's going to get north of $5 million. I mean, it's the going rate for the top quarterbacks, right? That shouldn't surprise anybody. But my understanding is that there's language in the deal that would be sort of like stipulated upon him playing. There are injury protections. So if he plays, he'll maximize the full value of the contract. If the injury keeps him out, he'll get a little less. But it's got to be a worthwhile gamble. You're talking about top quarterback in the portal, and as I think we've talked about, Lane Kiffin's had a lot of success in this situation, producing and developing portal quarterbacks, and LSU needed one. They got a good one if he's healthy.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a Sam Leavitt fan. If I had dropped Spencer's portal quarterback rankings, Josh Hoover would have been number one for me. I've been a Josh Hoover fan for a while. Him going to Indiana, I think, is a pretty seamless fit. I think if healthy, stylistically, I look at Sam Leavitt and go, boy, I see a lot of Trinidad Chambliss. I see a lot of Jackson Dart in Sam Leavitt's game, the way they play, the mobility that they have, again, presuming full health. Do you think stylistically it's that good of a fit? Because I really do.
I don't think they would have recruited him if it wasn't. It makes a lot of sense. Listen, we're learning Lane Kiffin here. He's been here about 6 weeks. But, I mean, we've all watched Lane Kiffin's offenses, and he's got to have a quarterback that has a mobile element to him. So in that sense, yeah, absolutely. The other thing too, aside from the physical ability, talked to a couple of staff members while Leavitt was on his visit last week. They loved his, like, just the intangibles, the moxie, the makeup. I had one coach tell me he's kind of the alpha that can control that type of room. And when you're at LSU, man, I'm sure it's like this a lot of places, but it's certainly like this here, especially when you talk about dudes that are like dogs from Louisiana and want to play at LSU. And I was reminded of this story when Joe Burrow came here in 2018, coming in from Ohio State. A lot of people may remember Patrick Queen, who was a linebacker, became a first-round pick. He's with the Steelers now. But there was a goal line drill they were running, and Burrow was the only healthy quarterback on the roster at the time. A lot of people didn't know that. And it was supposed to be no contact, and Queen lit up Burrow. Burrow got up, threw the ball at Patrick Queen. They fought on the practice field. That story's kind of become the stuff of legend here now, but that was kind of the moment that a lot of the guys would tell you where they were like, oh, okay, no, he's an alpha. Like, he's a guy that we can line up behind. And I kind of got the sense that they felt that with Leavitt on his visit too. So there's a lot to like about him here.
Is LSU done adding quarterbacks? Obviously, they brought in Landon Clark as well from Elon, but apparently they're trying to just set themselves up for the future, right? What's the latest on the pursuit of Hassan Longstreet?
So Hassan Longstreet took a visit to LSU this weekend. Told that went very well. Many know his story. He's a 5-star. At one point, was committed to A&M. Spent this year at Southern Cal in the portal after one season. But he had Ole Miss as one of his finalists. So Kiffin and Charlie Weiss Jr. were recruiting him out of high school. So there's a relationship there. And I had multiple sources on Sunday and again on Monday after Sam Leavitt committed confirmed to me that LSU is still pushing to add Hassan Longstreet. And what they're trying to sell him is the long-term vision. Maybe not the 2026 is possible based on Sam Leavitt's injury, but the 10 to 15-year vision in setting you up for the NFL and making money here and growing and developing under Lane Kiffin and quarterbacking LSU, that's kind of what they're trying to sell him on. You talk about options, Spencer, like what other options does Hassan Longstreet have right now that are plug-and-play ready-made starter? I mean, maybe Miami's obviously still looking for a starter, but aside from that, I mean, there's a case to be made. I don't think that's super realistic. Again, I'm editorializing here. That just seems like there's a guy that left USC to go to a place where he's going to start. And I don't think that that's a guarantee here. But I have no problem saying that LSU is still pushing for his commitment, and they will add him if he's willing to come.
Let me throw this one at you. I don't know how much you've heard on this front, but I get the sense perhaps a thing or two given your neck of the woods. Do you think Ty Simpson would really forego the NFL draft and come back to college football?
Sure, if someone was going to pay him $6.5 million. Now that reeks to me of an agent leaking a story and a number that is probably not true just to throw a line in the water to see if they get any bites. And if you play around in the agent world, an agent's job is to get the best deal possible for his client. And if Ty Simpson's agent is floating out, hey, we got a $6.5 million offer, and you say that anonymously to a reporter who will run that number, well, look, we're talking about it. And so who knows? Maybe Miami, who's quarterback needy and cash rich, will make that phone call and say, hey, Ty, we'll pay you 6.5. Or maybe like in a real estate negotiation, Spencer, it's like, hey, look, we're not going to do 6.5, but we'll do 5.5. And and it's almost like you list your home price to sell, knowing you got to have a little wiggle room in there. Like you list it high, knowing you got to have a little room. Maybe I'm speculating. I don't have the answer to your question, but of course I believe that. I mean, this guy at one point going into November, I would have said was probably the Heisman front runner. And so if a school like Miami that has cash and needs a starter wants to take a guy like that, yeah, I mean, that would make sense. Wouldn't surprise me a lick.
You got to haggle. Got to do a little haggling, little negotiating.
It's the agent world, bro.
Yeah, that's the world we live in, whether people out there like it or not. I imagine you all like Matt Moscona, Locked On LSU. Great, as always. Speaking of the Ole Miss Rebels, are they right back in the playoff next year? First, this episode brought to you by our friends at Wayfair. The new year is here, and it's the perfect time to reset your routine and refresh your space. If you're spending more time at home, which I am during the transfer portal saga here, you might as well love how it looks and feels. That's why you should turn to Wayfair. It's a one-stop shop for getting your home back on track. From bedding and mattresses to storage solutions for every room, Wayfair makes it easy to start the year fresh. Wayfair has everything you need for a full home refresh all in one place. Whether you're updating your living room, organizing your space, or upgrading your work from home setup, Wayfair's huge selection makes it easy to find exactly what works for your style and your budget. You can pick up new bedding, accent pillows, anything for your living room, bedroom. It's all there. Wayfair's got you covered. And you're going to be able to match whatever style you want without spending a fortune. Wayfair is just the place to go. It will make getting back into a routine this new year feel a lot more manageable. Get organized, refreshed, and back on track this new year for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Will it be rinse and repeat for Ole Miss at quarterback with Deuce Knight, the Auburn transfer? To discuss that, a guy who knows everything about Ole Miss, Steven Willis of Locked On Ole Miss. It's like that's the daily Ole Miss podcast or something or other in that regard. I think it's on his jacket over there. Steven, what was your instant reaction when Deuce Knight transferred to Ole Miss to replace Trinidad Chambliss, who of course did not get his waiver approved by the NCAA and is not expected to be able to win that fight? So is it Deuce Knight starting behind center in 2026?
If I had my money on who's going to take the first snap for Ole Miss in 2026, it's Trinidad Chambliss, honestly.
Really?
Oh, yes. They're getting ready to file a lawsuit, do the Diego Pavia thing in Mississippi State Court. And with everything that's going on, he kind of has a dream team at lawyer. I'm expecting an injunction. And I do think if anybody's the quarterback going into the fall, it's going to be Trinidad Chambliss, which is great because he is going to instantly walk in and be the best quarterback potentially in college football. And Ole Miss at that point with him at quarterback is a top 5 level team. So I will say that to say this. I really like Deuce Knight. I liked him during recruitment when he was committed to Notre Dame. I was talking to the Florida football scout, and I said, hey, it doesn't matter where he commits to. It doesn't matter where he signs with. He's going to end up at Ole Miss. And we ended up nailing that. But, I mean, he had, 170 yards rushing against Mercer. I get that it was Mercer, but it's still impressive when you're a true freshman starting and he had 400 yards of offense. But I really like Deuce Knight, but I do not think he's going to be the starting quarterback in 2026.
So it sounds like the NCAA is saying, no, you can't do this. But what we have seen before is judges have no allegiance or connection to the NCAA, and they are strictly ruling on the law at hand. And the NCAA is not enforcing the law. They're enforcing their own rules and have oftentimes been told, hey, your rules are not actually valid. There was a basketball player that had this example, by the way, who plays for Gonzaga by the name of Tyon Grant Foster. He applied for another year of eligibility, and the NCAA said, no, you've used it up already. I think he's legitimately 26 years old, and he's been around for a long time. He had a serious health concern back early in his career. Then he went to a judge and said, hey, can I still play? And they said, yeah, and he's starting for the top 15, 20 Gonzaga Bulldogs right now. So is that the option that you think Chambliss is going to be able to succeed on?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, Tom Mars, who is the NCAA super lawyer out there, and a couple of guys inside the state of Mississippi, they're going to file. They want an injunction or a temporary restraining order, however you want to phrase it, from the judge that is going to allow him to play while this case proceeds. And we all know the U.S. criminal justice system or circuit court or whatever, whichever it's called, moves at a snail's pace. So if he gets an injunction, he's going to play.
That's wild. Let's still talk about Deuce Knight just in case that doesn't happen. So Knight was a big-time recruit going to Auburn, and I think he's someone that at least a segment of the Tigers fan base wanted to keep around in the Alex Golesh era to see, hey, with what Alex Golesh has done with quarterbacks in his career, going back to his time at Tennessee with the Vols, would love to see what he could do with Deuce Knight. Immense potential, but he hasn't played a lot of football, right? That's kind of the biggest knock on him right now is, well, he just hasn't seen the field a whole heck of a lot. But this is not an overrating when you look at the tape and try to figure out, well, why was he so highly rated? Oh, yeah, that would be. I mean, he's an incredibly physically gifted kid.
Yeah, the first play in the game against Mercer this year that he started, 75-yard touchdown run. The second play was like a 60-yard touchdown run. I mean, he could do some crazy stuff athletically on a football field. And I don't know that he has ever stepped on a football field where he is not the best athlete on it. Now, he needs to learn how to play the position. And we all know that Auburn struggled last year with the quarterback position, and especially the developing and coaching of it.
You can just end that sentence at Auburn struggled.
Yes. So him sitting behind Trinidad, if that happens over the course of the year, kind of learning, kind of a mentor-mentee type situation, that is the perfect role potentially for Ole Miss moving forward. Deuce Knight in the Ole Miss offense, because I know that Lane Kiffin has moved on to LSU. It is still the same offense. They brought in David Baker, who basically was at Ole Miss from 2020 to 2023, and then he went to East Carolina and ran that offense and then brought it back. It's going to be really exciting to see somebody that is that athletically gifted run the same offense that Jackson Dart did, that Trinidad Champ, that they did. I want to see him in that scenario because, listen, you put those type of tools, this is a plus arm, this is plus running ability. He already weighs 220 pounds. He's probably going to put on 10 pounds as well. I mean, you have a legitimate chance where this could be the most physically gifted quarterback to ever try to run this system. And think about what that could mean.
Yeah, I think that's an exciting proposition if you're an Ole Miss fan. Do their 2026 return playoff hopes hinge on Chambliss winning his lawsuit, or do you think Deuce Knight could get them there?
I think it's going to be difficult with Deuce Knight because he'll be a redshirt freshman. So
yeah, you
can't really predict what's going on. I know that if Chambliss comes back and everything, this is a top 5 team. And he's the leader for the Heisman Trophy and all of that stuff. So the ceiling for Ole Miss with Chambliss is probably, if it's 12-team playoff, a bye in the playoff, although you probably don't want that. The ceiling for a Deuce Knight letting Ole Miss is probably 15 to 20, something like that. That's kind of what I'm looking at right now.
Is there anything else in the portal that Ole Miss has done that is really helping their team out that you've seen or that you would like to see them do? Or has it been a little bit on the quieter side, because, I mean, nothing else notable has happened at Ole Miss in the last 2 months?
Well, one thing's interesting. Ole Miss this year famously did a bunch of drop 8 and all of this to where they had trouble stopping the run from time to time. The reality of that is they could not play man coverage. When the other team knew that Ole Miss was playing man coverage, they would get a matchup and they would exploit it over and over again. You saw that against Georgia. You saw that early in the season against Arkansas, whenever they tried to do it. And because of that, teams like Miami could absolutely physical Ole Miss. Pete Golding said no more. Ole Miss has signed like 5 safeties already in this transfer portal as it started, including 5 stars, Jonell Aguero from Georgia, Edwin Joseph from Florida State. It is pretty obvious that Pete Golding is like, nope, this is not happening again. We're getting back to playing defense.
What's the timeline on the Chambliss appeal?
I don't know. That it's supposed to be filed in state court this week. That's the rumor about. And once that happens, I guess it's on the judge for the time frame after that. I figure it might happen. Maybe it's thinking optimistically, but this month sometime, but I'm not 100% sure.
Steven Willis, Locked On Ole Miss, great as always. Speaking of quarterback moves, here are the ones that you're probably overlooking, but could be really, really fun. First, this episode brought to you by our friends at Game Time. There is nothing like college football season. Tailgates, packed stadiums, and being right there in the middle of it all. The energy, the bands, the moments that you remember forever. But actually getting tickets, that part used to be frustrating with long queues, logins, prices jumping at checkout. That is why Game Time gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college football tickets and experiences in just a few taps. I've used Game Time to go to college football games, to go to college basketball games, to go to comedy shows, and I've had a great experience every time. I compared the tickets I got to other services, and I saved money every single time. Had a great experience too, because they've got all-in pricing. You get a view from your seat, so you know what to expect when you arrive. Game Time is just the place you want to go. Take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, LOCKEDONCollege, all caps, all one word, for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Here are 3 quarterback transfers that have definitely flown under the radar that you probably haven't thought about a whole heck of a lot. But you could look up next year and go, hey, I remember that time Spencer talked about that guy, and now he's making an impact. I'm not saying national championship impact. I might not even be saying conference championship impact. Let me start with Jaden Craig going to TCU. I think this is a downgrade for the Horned Frogs, without question. That doesn't mean I think Jaden Craig is bad. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the history of Harvard football. Go Crimson. Big Crimson? Is it Big Crimson? I think it's Big Crimson there for Harvard. He goes to TCU. I think he's capable. He's not a big runner. Neither was Josh Hoover. So I think the system is going to fit his skill set just fine. I don't think he has as good of an arm. I don't think he has as much it factor as Josh Hoover. That's why he's playing at Indiana now and why Jaden Craig is starting at TCU. But TCU is a program that has just quietly been solid the last couple of years. Since their 5-7 year after the national championship season, they've just been an 8-9 win team the last couple of years. Pretty good. Got that thrilling Alamo Bowl win over USC. What a matchup that was. 3rd and 20, and USC reverted back to not tackling under Lincoln Riley for one particular play. But I think TCU, fine. Doing fine with Jaden Craig there. And then there's Alonzo Barnett, also going to the Big 12. This is the Sun Belt Player of the Year. Led James Madison to the playoff, of course, went on the road to Oregon, had that great second half that led some people to believe Oregon's defense wasn't any good. And, I mean, if it's going against Indiana and turnovers are a factor, no, Oregon's defense doesn't look very good. But you can ask Texas Tech what that Oregon defense was when they were playing their starters and fully engaged and such. But Barnett led JMU to a Sun Belt championship. They were the best team in the league. They go to the playoff for the first time ever. Big deal for that program. And Barnett was fantastic. Now, not a super high completion percentage guy. This year with the Dukes, he did also run for 589 yards and 15 touchdowns. But he was a sub 60% completion guy. 2,800 yards, 23 touchdowns, and 8 picks. Overall, pretty darn good. But you're taking a step up in competition from the Sun Belt to the Big 12. That's going to be a hurdle for Scott Frost and company. Now, as it is for any team that takes a quarterback from that kind of level, brings them up to the Power 4, there's always going to be a challenging component to that. Here's another one, and I'm going to talk Bo Pribula going to Virginia on tomorrow's show, because I don't think that's an under-the-radar move. I think most of us understand that Bo Pribula, watch this. This is a one-day-in-advance tease, I should say. Bo Pribula could factor into the college football playoff. Remember, Virginia was 1 win away from getting there this season. Chandler Morris gets denied. I'm saving those thoughts for tomorrow. But Aiden Childs goes to Northwestern. So here's a guy that fans in Corvallis will sit there and probably correctly argue never should have left the state. Was a big-time quarterback recruit. Big win for Jonathan Smith. Was the future of the Beavers, and of course, Jonathan Smith left. After 2 years in East Lansing, Aiden Childs hasn't done anything really good. He's been a high 50 to low 60s completion percentage guy in 2 years with the Spartans in 21 games played. Believe he got benched at one point this year. He threw 23 touchdowns and 14 interceptions. He did cut down on the interceptions this year while throwing for 45 fewer yards a game. He has straight up not been good. He's got the physical tools. He can move. He's got a big arm. He's over 6 feet tall. He's got all of that. But what he needs is a better situation. And crazy though this is to say, on the surface, he has found it in the former stop of the current head coach at Michigan State, who he's not sticking around to play for. Pat Fitzgerald wants the Northwestern head coach. Aiden Childs is still a Big Ten quarterback. Is he one of the best ones? Definitely not. Here is today's trivia moment for all of you out there. And I'm a trivia diehard. I haven't missed a regular episode of Jeopardy in a long, long time. About 8 years to be exact. So can you tell me, anyone listening to or watching this show, who Northwestern's offensive coordinator is? Are you aware? It's Chip Kelly. Last time he was seen in college football, it went poorly with the Raiders. Last time he was seen in college football, Chip Kelly coordinated Will Howard to a national championship. And Will Howard, last I checked, is not a starting NFL quarterback. I believe he's a backup or a third string somewhere. So Aiden Childs with a veteran OC and a head coach in David Braun that's coming off a good season. I tell you what, that is one of the most interesting under-the-radar quarterback moves I think this entire cycle is going to produce. And here's why I bring it up as one of those moves that I don't think is going to have conference or national championship implications directly in the Big Ten. But let me just throw this game at you. Do you realize that on, I believe it's September 19th, September 19th, going to double check that real quick. Do you realize that the UCF Knights are playing, or excuse me, not the UCF Knights. See, that's called a little Freudian slip. Do you realize that Northwestern is playing Colorado this year? September 19th. Deion Sanders and the Buffs, the Juju Lewis-led Colorado Buffaloes, in all likelihood, are going to travel to Evanston to play Northwestern with quarterback Aiden Childs and offensive coordinator Chip Kelly. Now, of these three under-the-radar moves, I will tell you, the one I like the most is actually Alonzo Barnett at UCF. The Knights did not have a totally awful season. They went 5-7 in Scott Frost's first year at the helm. Their preseason win total was 5.5. They almost went over. I think they could be a bowl team next year. The question is whether Barnett can up his efficiency. If he does, then UCF is interesting because UCF with Scott Frost as its head coach, their defense has to improve, obviously, but they went 5-7, getting almost nothing out of Taven Jackson, who is now at North Texas taking Drew Mestemaker's place. Jackson went 63.5% completion, 10 touchdowns, 8 picks. And UCF won 2 Big 12 games. Granted, they were against Oklahoma State and West Virginia, but they also beat North Carolina, who kind of stunk, sort of. But UCF, I thought UCF would go under their win total. I did not think they'd go 5-7. I believe I had UCF 3-9 or 2-10 going into the year. So I'm just saying, Scott Frost didn't work in Nebraska. Doesn't mean he can't work with UCF. So of those three under-the-radar moves, I think Barnett to UCF is the most interesting because Scott Frost can make that work. But Aiden Childs at Northwestern, beware, Colorado fans. Appreciate everyone listening. See you next time. Until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.